with a very, very typical Burning Abyss play.
Yeah, you can see those cards in the graveyard, and you can backtrack everything here.
Pretty much. It was the tour guide to get, looks like a seer.
Right.
Dante.
So this is what Peter has on the field at this point in time. This is his hand. Another Foolish Burial, Breakthrough Skill, Phoenix Wind Blast, and the beginning of the end. That's a card that has been causing a little bit of discussion between the players.
Now that actually looks like it. Oh, yes, that's weird.
Yeah, you need 7 or more Dark Monsters in your graveyard. I mean, this would have happened the turn before, the game before, where we saw a deck out. Still can't get over that match.
No, that was amazing.
So second Dante on the opening turn. Let's take a look at Diego's hand, because we know what's going to happen for Peter here. So
he's got his Helix, he's got his Disc, he's got his Summoner's Art. Basically, he has the makings of a one-turn, one-hit wonder.
Yep.
Unfortunately, there's a wall of Dante to deal with now.
That for starters, and then we also have the Phoenix Wind Blast, one of the many traps that the Burning Abyss deck is running to cripple the opponent's plays.
But all that needs to happen is that Night Beam needs to hit it.
Oh yes, yes, there's a good chance that this could happen. But then again, do you activate Night Beam when your opponent has 2 face-down cards? Do you just gamble?
It's debatable. I mean, what has he just drawn there?
A Sacrifice.
A Sacrifice as
there
well.
Is the
and
Night Beam.
Night Beam has hit.
He does hit.
The Phoenix Wing Wind
It's
Blast.
the Phoenix Wind Blast. Very good opening for Diego Badinotti, taking out the one card that was able to foil his game plan here, which is, if you haven't been playing Qliphort ever before, Qliphort Scout.
Yeah.
Search, search, search. Assemble field.
Unfortunately, as well, though, that breakthrough skill is going to stop any sort of trixies that he's going to try and do. So he's going to be playing the Scout, paying 800, going and fetching a card. Now, he does have the potential ability to be able to Pendulum. What's there he got in his hand? He's got a Scout, a Disc, a Helix.
There we go. This is his hand one more time.
Yeah, if you had one more Qliphort monster.
But why doesn't he simply go for the Scout and start searching here?
I think he's just thinking about what he needs to do here. There it is.
Is the Scout. And this is the first loss of life points, in case you're wondering. There's no attack or anything. Qliphort Scout, the most important card of this archetype, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think that's not even debatable.
No. It's Scout and Sacrifice, 2 of the biggest cards.
Yep. So,
also has a very, very cool flavor text, just for anybody that's a programmer.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It was also fun to translate this, because we had to actually look everything up. You haven't been working with MS-DOS for so long.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do they use? Do they say something like unknown publisher? What German word do they use for that? Yeah, funny story there. So he does Qliphort Scout. You might wonder, why is it doing anything? It's a normal monster. Well, the upper half is a normal monster, but the lower half is a spell card. That's what a Pendulum monster looks like. And he activated it in the Pendulum zone. This is this new gaming zone in between the graveyard and his deck, at least the one of the two. And this is the upper part of the effect text kicks in here. So he can pay 800 life points and search his deck for a Qli card. And again, this is his hand. He did draw, or not draw, but searched for the carrier. And yeah, this is the other half of the Qliphort archetype, really.
Actually, looking at it, he does have a very, very powerful play. What he could be doing here is putting the carrier down, Pendulum summoning the Helix, equipping it with Sacrifice, tributing for Disc. Disc then gets its effect. Unfortunately, there is a breakthrough skill there that he doesn't know about.
Yeah, but Diego Badinotti, being one of the
he's putting the Disc down.
He's one of the most skilled players. I think he can make a very good read on his opponent here.
It's a very interesting play.
So the Scout and Disc are down in the Pendulum zones, and down goes the carrier.
Yeah. Let's just remind everybody of Disc's Pendulum effect there.
Yeah, there we go. This is Disc up for you guys. And interestingly enough, also, Peter Gross doesn't use his breakthrough skill. There's a Disc.
Ah, right. So it's giving it 300 extra attack.
And this way, he can actually get rid of both Dantes.
Yes, he pendulum summoned one of... I see what he's done. He's pendulum summoned the carrier, attributing it for the helix, and then equipping it with a sacrifice. Now, because it was a tributed monster, it doesn't matter that that breakthrough skill is there, because that effect is activating in the graveyard, meaning that it's bouncing a Dante back to the extra deck. And with sacrifice giving 300 extra attack to
attack over the other Dante.
And the 300 extra attack that's being given by the disc, it's just enough. And it's been tribute summoned as well, so it's ridiculously huge.
It seemed
right
like
now.
the safest way to approach this situation on the field, isn't it?
Yeah, he's...
And I wouldn't be surprised if Diego Badinotti knew about that he was perfectly aware that this is the one line of plays where Peter gets denied the most out of his possible answers and of his Dante effects and everything.
Okay, so he's ended the turn, and there's a Scarm in the graveyard from what we can see there. I believe that was one of the first cards to be discarded with Dante from the top of the deck.
Let's take a look at Peter's hand again.
So he's just thinking, what card's going to help me in this situation?
How many dark monsters does he have in the graveyard? That's 1, 2, 3, 4?
He has, yes, he has 4 in there. Technically also the Scarm, he's taken it out of there, so he does have the 5th dark. But he has a 5 dark, so
I think he needs 7,
isn't
yes.
it? Yeah.
There we go, at the beginning of the end. A card that, if you're actually holding it in your hand half the time, you will have a hard time reading it because it's such a shiny
sorry
card.
there, that's Dante bringing...
Oh, Dante bringing something back, so he just went down one card in his graveyard. I think he's still at 4.
Yeah.
So he's got the Rubik on the field and the breakthrough skill.
Oh, I believe that may have been Foolish Burial, actually. No, the Foolish Burial...
No, Foolish is still in hand. And Diego also set the Book of Moon, so he's now out of cards in his hand. Book of Moon, one of these oldies but goldies, one of these age-old cards that are still very useful.
One of the best cards in the game.
Yeah, definitely. It's even limited. It doesn't seem to have such a big effect, actually.
No, it doesn't have, well,
like
against Burning Abyss, it's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as you flip that card face down, that's a monster that's no longer a Burning Abyss monster.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't summon any of your other Burning Abyss monsters.
But considering that there are so many cards that simply say outright something like destroy one card on the field or something like that, I find it surprising that a card that simply flips something face down and doesn't destroy it is considered more powerful.
It's because it's stopping effects.
Yep.
It's no longer naming particular cards. It can stop synchro summons. It can stop just so many things.
Yep. Speaking of so many things, these are the many options that Peter Gross has access to, and it just...
Okay, so Foolish Burial is putting Graf in the graveyard. Graf is then going to special summon. He's looking at that Calcab. The idea is either to get rid of the sacrifice or either of the pendulum cards. Although he's not aware, of course,
of the Book of Moon.
Of the Book of Moon there.
Yep.
Which will be his downfall.
And is there anything super out of the ordinary that we have seen in Peter Gross's deck so far? Because when we interviewed him and asked him about some silver bullets, he was slightly reluctant and wouldn't give anything away.
I'll be honest, other than the beginning of the end, no. It's a very, very simple Burning Abyss build.
Yep, but very consistent, I guess.
Well, Burning Abyss is consistent by its nature.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing particularly out of the ordinary.
So maybe we will later see some special tech from the side deck that
he is
getting
siding
introduced.
to Ojama Trio.
That's not...
And a Mischief of Yokai?
Mischief of Yokai. I don't know if we've seen that card ever on the stream. I'm pretty certain we didn't. Mischief of the Yokai. And it says each face-up monster on the field loses 2 levels until the end phase.
Oh, and there goes the Book of Moon.
And you can also remove it from play or banish it. It's still the old card text that we have here. From your graveyard to select one face-up monster and reduce its level by 1 until the end phase. So this is good against Satella Knights, of course, that want to go for these rank 4 exceed summons all the time.
It also stops Burning Abyss because all Burning Abyss exceeds 3.
Yep.
And also stops the synchro. Now he's back
going for
Calcab
Tour Guide.
got flip face down. Tour Guide is coming out. Because Calcab got flip face down, it also destroyed the other Burning Abyss that was on the field. So as I said earlier, it's no longer a Burning Abyss monster. Tour Guide is getting Scum, which is a pretty standard play.
Yep.
Because its effects negated by tour guide, it won't be destroyed.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that somebody who is playing against Burning Abyss for the very first time is always wondering about. How come that all of these Burning Abyss monsters say when you control a non-Burning Abyss monster, they get destroyed? How does that not happen when I search for it with tour guide? But as you just pointed out, the tour guide effect is stopping it from that. And that's a third Dante.
Okay, so Dante is milling 2 cards, discarding, well, three
Three
cards from the
cards.
top of his deck. Now that's got rid of 2 Alex, which doesn't help. I believe it's actually almost like an effect veiler for Burning Abyss. As soon as it hits the graveyard, it negates the effect of one monster that's faced on the field, and that allows him to play the beginning of the end.
Yeah, there we go. So far, it seems, yeah, 7. It looks like a very good card in Peter Gross's deck, in my opinion. But can you always run that quickly through all the cards in your deck and send them to the graveyard?
Burning Abyss is really, really efficient at making Dante, and Dante always takes 3 cards off the top of your deck if you're playing a beginning of the end.
Yeah, so if you're not that unlucky with your hits with Dante.
So he's drawn into Upstart Goblin.
And 2 more Malebranche, yeah. Let's bring out the hand of the player. However,
Just waiting for it to be updated there.
yeah.
So the Upstart Goblin then draws into a Phoenix Wing Blast. That's Phoenix Wing Blast, Seer, Scarm.
2 copies of Rubik that he has now.
Yeah.
And it looks so interesting because Diego is down to just 1 monster on the field and the equipment, equip spell card.
Well,
And
if that equipped spell card goes to the graveyard, then an extra search is going off.
yeah. So he's not as much out of options as it might appear.
And the Phoenix Wing Blast is definitely going to hurt Diego.
Yeah, that is true. So how does Peter approach this situation? He's not going to attack. He's just waiting for the Phoenix Wind Blast.
Well, he can't really attack. It is unfortunate, though, because that means that Dante is going to stay in attack position.
Unless he finds something that we have failed to identify yet. Some other play.
He has the breakthrough skill
No, he
face down
just, he
still.
just goes. And I think he's like, can you please announce your faces so I can make sure that I activate the Phoenix Wind Blast at the very most opportune moment. Although he's probably going for it in the standby phase already.
It's possible. But then that means that he's getting a sacrifice search and... but he's going to get a sacrifice search and a scout search regardless.
And yeah, there you have the guys. With Diego on the left-hand side and Peter on the right-hand side.
Now, a breakthrough skill is definitely going to stop at least a disc play at this point. But if it gets tributed, it's not going to stop Helix from destroying the other face down. And a possible carrier as well.
Yeah, there's the search from Diego. And Peter might actually save or use the Phoenix Wind Blast on the scout now.
It's very possible. There is also a Seer there, but unfortunately with that face down card, anything he's going to special summon is going to be destroyed, unless it's another Dante. There's the Phoenix Wind Blast, discarding the Seer, returning the scout to the top of the deck.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the breakthrough skill again. And,
and there's the Dante.
All of this is very good for Peter, really. With Diego no longer being able to search through his deck, he did draw into Performapal Trampolines.
Which is unfortunate, if he would have been able to have that.
He kind of proved you wrong in a way, because you were earlier saying that players are either playing Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon or Trampolines.
No, they do play both, but Odd Eyes is another search for any Pendulum card. But generally, they use it just because it's the only card that can actually search the Trampolines out of the deck.
And he's playing both cards.
But he's playing so many of them, which is...
2 times each.
Yeah.
So that means that he doesn't want to go to the late game because he might be drawing into some dead cards. And he's running also just 7 trap cards. So it looks like it's one of the more explosive versions of Qliphort, isn't it?
A little bit. Although looking at the amount of trampolines he's got, he's looking for a lot of scout searches. And He's getting rid of the face down, Burning Abyss, Cow Cab. Cow
Yep.
Cab being destroyed, I believe allows him to return that sacrifice back to hand. If we can bring up Cow Cab at all.
The Calcap, there we go. That's the Helix first, and in just a second we're going to see the Calcap. But we can already give you the card text again. It has the same effects of all the Burning Abyss monsters, of course, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target one set spell trap card on the field and return it to hand.
So yeah, that's that.
Yep.
Oh, and he did just drop
So
a Fire Lake directly into the graveyard, but he does have one in
he
hand.
does have another one in his hand, and with Dante being able to return the Fire Lake in the graveyard.
One of the big issues that Diego's got now is if that sacrifice is destroyed. Now he's just used the breakthrough skill to negate Helix. Helix doesn't actually have any active effect at the moment. But he was using it, of course, to get rid of his spell and trap card zone, so he could special summon the Skarm and the Rubik, which turns into a Virgil.
Yeah, this is something that I saw players talking quite a bit about it.
He's decided to shuffle it back into the deck, meaning that he's not getting the search from sacrifice.
When they first saw the new cards out of the new challenges, some people were like, oh, Rubik, I don't know if I want to run it. All it does is give me access to Virgil.
Yeah, all it does.
All it does. Yeah, I think those guys have been proven wrong. That's pretty safe to say at this point in time. And now it's time to dish out some damage for Peter Gross. And the Dantes switch to defense position. He's got the Fire Lake. He can set that, and he's also getting to search for a tour guide.
From
So
Skarm.
he even got a follow-up for his next turn, and Diego really needs to draw something here.
Now it's unfortunate that Diego isn't actually running Raigeki in any capacity. He has got a spell card there, which we'll find out what that is soon. And no, we're not going to find out what that is. He's
yeah,
he's
he
giving up
only
that
had the trampolines in his hand, and he drew into a dead card, so to speak, that wouldn't get him out of that sticky situation. And Peter Gross denying his opponent all of his searches, all of his effects. Again, masterful execution there.
Definitely. Although, what do we think that there's actually going to be any sort of siding at this point? I mean, the Monarch Storm 4th, for me, would be one of the more obvious choices, just to get rid of the massive amount of cards that Peter was getting out onto the field, and then set off your own effects. There's also probably going to be coming out, I believe, all of those cards are Dark Burning Abyss, aren't they? So we should see a Shadow Imprisoning Mirror.
Except for Dante and
Except for Dante.
Virgil, I think, as well. It should also be light. But everything else is a Dark Fiend.
It is possible.
Right, and with all those dark monsters, the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror is again gonna playing a major role here.
Although not necessarily, thinking about it now. Although looking at it, there's Black Horn of Heaven there and a Bottomless Trap Hole, which doesn't stop a Dante but will stop a Virgil. In Peter's side deck, here's the enemy controller that you were talking about not that long ago. And a Majesty's Fiend. Majesty's Fiend stopping the tribute for any of those Qli monsters, which is going to hurt him massively.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, that's Vanity's Fiend, is it not?
I keep
I
keeps
always
missing
forget
these.
the fiends. I get them all mixed up.
So Vanity's Fiend is the one that cannot be neither player can special summon
monsters. Okay, which one is? I believe Majesty's Fiend is effects cannot be activated, isn't
exactly, yeah. Monster effects cannot be activated.
Yes.
So that is the first game. One of the interviews we did, one player, I don't even remember who it was, said that even after every match, he takes a new spare sheet of paper from his notepad, rather than continuing to write something down at the very bottom corner or something like that, because he wants to really take it one game at a time. I think it was Marcello Barberi that said you shouldn't really be affected by what happened in the previous rounds in your current round. Just looked a little like Peter Gross was doing just that as well, even though it's just in between games. And Peter Gross had a lot of advice for players new to the game. Like if you're in the Vienna area and you're looking for somebody who can like tutor you and tell you a little bit about the game, Peter Gross is your guy. Yeah, one of the things he said that stuck with me the most is that you have to play against better players. Otherwise, you're never gonna improve as a player.
Yeah, because I hear that a lot from less experienced players. They're really wanting to be. They don't go to events like this simply because they're scared, basically, of playing up against those big name players, and they get very nervous. But if you don't play up against those big name players, you'll never know how to beat them. Now, Peter Gross is opening there with a tour guide, 2 Graf, 1 Seer, and one other card that I can't quite see there. And Diego's hand hasn't been revealed to us just yet.
Interesting discussion. I was speaking to Umut Serin prior to the tournament, and he said that Peter Gross, I think that was before he decided to play Burning Abyss, he prefers to have his opponent go first because you know what your opponent is playing, which can be a very big advantage. You might be misplaying without knowing, just because you need to play in a different way depending on what your opponent is playing. And also you have one more card in hand, of course, which can play a big role. So
Diego going there?
Yeah, with the Scout immediately.
Scout to get carrier.
And you see his hand on the left-hand side with the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror being introduced from the side deck. And with a Spice Typhoon and a Night Beam, he also has quite a few ways to cause some havoc on Peter's back row.
Interesting there that he put Climate Change back. It's just a nice little ability to be able to get up to 3 Qliphort monsters back into your hand.
Yeah.
After they've been destroyed. Although, as I said before, the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror just essentially is taking out Tour Guide, because everything else is going to activate in the graveyard.
I think Shadow Imprisoning Mirror basically just says if the effect
triggers,
it just in
general?
And it's on the field or in the graveyard, it negates it.
It's been a while since I've read the card. Yep, that's correct. Or in the graveyard. So yeah, this is a massively good card against.
It's extremely good against Shadow and both Burning Abyss. These are the 2 decks that you always want to side into Shadow Imprisoning Mirror unless you're running the very same deck or a lot of Dark Monsters, of course.
Otherwise, you will mess yourself.
Yep. So Peter has a Mystical Space Typhoon that he could activate, but this is something that you don't see very often from the more experienced players. Taking a stab in the dark, pretty much.
Generally, you want to use it
when you know that you're going to get some value out of it. And in this situation, I mean, now would be the time, exactly, to activate the Mystical Space Typhoon.
You want to use the Mystical Space Typhoon on things that are going to stop you playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is what's usually thrown around a lot. Because cards that stop you playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, Vanity's Emptiness, all those sorts of cards, you want to just hit them with Mystical Space Typhoon. Yeah,
if you're not familiar with the term Floodgate, because I think this is the first time I've heard it. I've heard it earlier in a conversation. I mean, this weekend is the first time I've heard it. So there are cards, plenty of them in fact, that allow you to special summon a bunch of monsters all in the same turn, which some players call a flood. You're flooding the field with monsters, and a Floodgate is a card that stops your opponent from doing just that. In that case, the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. Or very often the Vanity's Emptiness is the #1 Floodgate, so to speak. So yeah, this is one of the things. If you're one of the more experienced players, you're gonna get used to using these terms that might not make too much sense when you're watching this game for the first time ever.
Now, Dante on top of a Graph and a Tour Guide. Graph goes to the graveyard. 3 cards. There goes the beginning of the end and the Foolish Burial. But a Calcab is going to the graveyard. Returning, I do believe that was the Mystical Space Typhoon to hand. Yep, there it is.
So Night Beam and Mystical Space Typhoon in hand for Diego Badinotti. And he's left with...
Graph is going to bring out, I believe that's a Rubik.
He's left with Qliphort Scout, Climate Change, and Qliphort Carrier on the field. Climate Change being the face-down card, of course.
It's going to be a special summon of a Burning Abyss monster that hasn't used its effect so far. And here comes the Virgil. There goes a Graph, and Scout is going to be returned to deck.
So again, it looks like Peter Gross got this one, right? Well, he's so much control.
This is what I was saying earlier about the meta triangle.
Yep.
Burning
Abyss is the one deck to beat Qliphort.
Yeah, because it's just getting rid of everything. Fire Lake, Rubik, Alec, just all these little cards that just stop your opponent doing anything. Diego there also wearing one of the official Yu-Gi-Oh t-shirts there, which you can also pick up at the event.
Yeah, very popular with the players that are playing in the feature match area.
Yep.
Which is not that surprising. It seems like all the better players love to wear these shirts. So there's the Night Beam that Diego is activating. That's like I don't want to say a better version of a Mystical Space Typhoon, but it's a
very, very good card to be playing. Well, you can only play it in your turn, but it's basically saying you have answers, but you're not going to use them.
Yeah. And especially against Burning Abyss, where everything is chainable, this is a real thing.
So that's a Skarm going to the graveyard there, so in the end phase, Peter will be able to get...
He's still got a Gruff and a Skarm in his hand.
Rubik is targeting the Mystical Space Typhoon.
That's also somewhat unfortunate for Diego now, isn't it?
Now he's just played Shadow Imprisoning Mirror in response because the graph there has gone to the graveyard.
Right.
Just to make sure that there's going to be no sort of effect going off. There isn't actually anything he can do at this point, so I do believe that he's trying to bluff with that climate change.
Yeah,
which Peter just isn't falling for.
Back row cards, and Peter will probably know that he can attack here.
And he just played
somewhat safely, and Diego is gonna. He's taking the damage, and then he shakes the hand, and Peter grows. Well, masterful execution, really. Like after that match, you shouldn't have any doubts that Burning Abyss is more than capable of dissecting the Qliphort deck left and right.